In this video, I'll be giving some home truths about running a nursery from your home. This is to balance out the last video where we went through some of the positives. If you don't know who I am, I'm the owner of a nursery in London, though before I moved to my own dedicated 50-place nursery building, I started just how you are thinking about now, from my home. I started my nursery from one room in my house with just 2 part-time children on my first day. I've grown the nursery since then, and I now teach people like yourself how to do the same. This is done via the simply named course, Learn How to Open a Nursery in Your Home. This course takes you through the steps you need to take in order to open a nursery in your house. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos about opening your own nursery. To research for this video and give you the most information, I've tried to speak to as many childminders and home nursery providers, people who run a childcare on domestic premises setting, as possible to discuss what they disliked about having childcare in their home and their biggest stresses, which I will go through in this video. These are some things I disliked as well, and I'll try to put it all together so that you can get a realistic picture of what you'll be getting into. Now, a quick disclaimer. I actually really enjoyed running the nursery from my house and did actually enjoy it more than running the nursery as I do now, as I was more hands-on then and got to interact with children and parents more. It was also my first experience of running and working in a nursery and also managing staff. So it was a big learning curve for myself, which I did really enjoy the challenge of this. The people that I spoke to also really loved running the nursery from the house as well. But it was fun to us to collaborate like this in order to get and discuss some of the frustrations that we do have with running a nursery from home. I thought it's important to do as I listed some of the positives in the last video. So for fairness, I wanted to list some of the negatives and things I didn't enjoy too. That way you get the ability to decide whether you think that opening a nursery in your home is worth it. I'm going to list as many negatives as possible so you can be sure you're making the right decision to open a nursery in your home. I do want to stress that this is my perspective and the perspective of the people that I have spoken to, so I don't want to sound ungrateful for the amazing position I've gotten into, and I understand, having done it myself, the stress and pressure, but also rewards and joy that childminding and running a nursery can bring. So I hope I don't offend anybody, and I apologise if I do. This is just to help you get a better idea of what you may be getting yourself into. But back to the point of the video. In this video, we'll be going over some of the cons of working in a nursery. In the previous video, we went through some of the positives, which included being your own boss, the ability to look after your own children, and be there for your family. But we'll now go through some of the negatives, which include: number 1, you are everything. You're the cleaner, you're the cook, you're the nurse, you're the nursery practitioner, you're the secretary. You end up being counsellors for both staff and parents. And any problem, big or small, people will come to you. You have so many hats and have so much responsibility. Having to fulfill and take on all of these roles can be overwhelming. It's not like in a dedicated nursery building where it's much easier to separate these roles. Because you are living in a house, you're likely to at some point fulfill all these roles, and people will come to you much more to resolve all types of issues. People will lean on you and come to you for everything. For example, even if you hire a cook, if they call in sick, people will look to you to replace them. I was also always disturbed when I was on my lunch breaks, as people felt I would know everything that was happening in the nursery, even minor things like asking where a child's hat might be. Because you are still in a house, it's much easier for people to contact you. If someone needs something, ultimately it's your responsibility and you have to do it. If a parent needs a receipt, even if they've asked another staff member, if they don't get it, it's you that's going to be hearing from it. If staff need a work reference for their house, the responsibility is on you. There's so much that you have to take care of as a home nursery provider. You may end up feeling overwhelmed because there's so many things that you have to do. This is what caused me stress early on until I came up with a proper system to manage it. This was by properly delegating and giving specific responsibilities. When problems arose, I let people know that they have to solve it and not rely on me to do so. Once you get more into the routine of things and things are more settled, this will become much easier. But I'm just letting you know that it can still be a little bit overwhelming, especially in the beginning and when you're just starting out. Even though I've been doing it for 7 years, I still find it overwhelming at times. Having all the responsibility ultimately fall on me is stressful, though it's something you will have to deal with and get used to. One way to help, as I mentioned, is to really define your other staff's roles and to ensure that you delegate. This is something I struggled with as I took on most roles, as I found it hard to trust others to do it how I wanted. but I realised through experience that by collaborating you get better ideas, and it is good to empower others to take charge too, as it will help them to develop and lead to less stress for yourself. But another negative of running a nursery from your home is that people may be less professional. Unfortunately, parents are likely to take you less seriously than in a dedicated nursery centre, like if you had your own building. When it comes to running a nursery outside your home in a dedicated building, which for the ease I will refer to as childcare on non-domestic premises, these nurseries have set times and hours. They open at a certain time and close at a certain time, and the majority of parents stick to it. You are less likely to get parents trying to bend these timings, as they understand that staff want to go home, and parents are less likely to arrive early expecting staff to be in. When I had the childcare at my house, we used to open at 6 a.m. This was to help parents that started early, yet we still had parents trying to come earlier, banging on the door wanting their child to be let in. A few times a parent even came at 5 a.m, and because they knew we were home, they kind of demanded that we opened. This wouldn't happen if you were in your own building, because they wouldn't expect you to be in. At first I felt rude not opening the door when a parent arrived early, as I didn't want them to be waiting outside, especially if I was inside and I was just getting ready. So I did used to let them in. But in reality, it was a lack of respect from the parent. They didn't respect that I needed time to get ready and may want to rest before starting, which is already a long day. What I'm trying to say is that parents may have less respect for you than if you're running a childcare on non-domestic premises. The same thing can happen at pickup. Parents can leisurely stroll in after your closing time and think that it's okay to do so. You may even get comments like, "Oh, it's okay, you're at home already," and parents may start to take advantage of this situation. Again, we weren't as strict on this at the start, as we wanted to be friendly and nice to parents, but we had to put a stop to it as it was affecting our enjoyment of work, and it was just very frustrating. Once we spoke to parents to specifically state our boundaries, this happened less, which is something you will have to do too. You need to let them know your rules and let them know you will be sticking to them. Even after discussing, parents still tried to come early and pick up later, but this soon stopped once they knew they would have to wait outside until we opened, even though we were in the house, and late pickups were less when we started charging for this. It still happened, and we never really charged people where it was a genuine lateness, like an accident or a personal circumstance, but with the parents you know who are just taking advantage will hopefully stop when they know they will be charged for the lateness. Unfortunately, families and friends may take you less seriously too, by not respecting that you are running your own business and may do stuff which you may not want to happen in your nursery, like not tidying or visiting the house unannounced, or expecting you to do things just because you're at home. This can be very frustrating if you don't feel supported as you try to manage the pressures of running a nursery. There is also a potential for staff to be less professional too, but as long as you set your standards and what you expect early and show you are serious about it, you can prevent this. Another of the main negatives is that it can be difficult to separate your home and your work life. With the nursery being in your home, it can feel like you're always at work. You end up being in what used to be your home and just constantly seeing toys. This can be stressful and make it difficult to feel relaxed at home. When you're constantly surrounded by your work, it can be addictive to try and make things perfect. You may end up constantly adding to that activity that you set up to make it just that bit better, or we constantly think about what the three eyes of that activity might be. It's so hard to just shut off from work. Some days you may just get sick of loads of toys and nursery stuff in your room, in your kitchen, in your bathroom, and all over your house. Now, this isn't something I was really bothered about, as I didn't mind the nursery stuff in my house, and I saw it as an opportunity to do extra stuff if I wasn't doing anything else in the evenings, but it can be difficult to find a balance. I have spoken to other home childcare providers. I do know some who have gradually reduced the stuff that they have in their shared areas like their kitchen and bathrooms by, for example, reducing displays so it doesn't feel as much like a nursery whilst they're in their home. This also might not be a concern for you, but could end up being a concern for your family members or whoever's staying in your house, as their home will feel like a workplace too. When you start your nursery, you're going to be very excited and want to cover your whole house with nursery stuff. But it might be a good idea to do it little by little, especially if you think this might be a concern for you or your family members, as you don't want anyone in your house to find all the stuff overwhelming, and you want to make it as easy as possible for you to separate your home and work life. I touched on this already, but having a nursery in your home can make it impossible to really relax at home. It makes it very easy to constantly do work without really having a break. You end up carrying work well into your evenings and doing work when you're supposed to be at home relaxing. This could be initiated by parents who turn up late, forcing you to work later than you intended. Unlike in a nursery setting, you're likely to be the one that's staying late with them. Whenever parents were late, I would always be the one to stay late so that all my staff didn't have to stay later as it was in my home. And it obviously didn't affect me as much if they stayed late as it does them, as I don't have to travel to get home. Parents may even ask and pay to stay late, which can give you extra income if you needed it and didn't have anything planned in the evening, but this can mean you overwork yourselves, so be wary of this. And even if you don't intend to do work in the evenings, your work-life balance can still be blurred in other ways. I said in the last video, the ability to have breaks at home was a blessing as you get to relax in your own home. You have all your home comforts and can even sleep in your bed. But in reality, it can be more difficult than this. Unless and until you set clear boundaries with your staff, which can be difficult to do, you may end up constantly being disturbed on your breaks, with staff asking various questions that in reality could have waited until you returned. The inability to really take a break from work for yourself can be stressful. Some people I've spoken to have also mentioned that they found it difficult to balance the needs of their families and needs of their work. When your family are at home whilst you're working, they may feel that they should get some of your time and not understand why they can't spend time with their parent or even their partner. Your children may even get jealous of the time you spend working with and caring for other children. Hopefully you can have conversations with them to help them with the transition, but even then they may still be upset by it, which can be upsetting as a parent. Both my children were like this when they started the nursery. My youngest was under 1 when he started and used to cry and have a tantrum whenever I used to hold or care for another child, though they did both quickly get used to this. Another frustration of having a nursery in your home is that family members may now believe things are your responsibility as you're just at home and expect you to do things, not respecting how much time and work you put in during the day. If you do have a family, it can feel like you never get a break from kids too. Sometimes you may just want to have a break, but having a nursery in your home makes it difficult to check out. As soon as you stop working at a nursery, you're straight into work at home. Whereas when you travel to and from work, you get that extra break of possibly stopping off at like a coffee shop. It can be long talking to children all day at work and then having to get that same energy when you're at home. But as most of you work in childcare anyway, I'm sure you're all already used to this challenge. Linked into the difficulty of balancing work and home life is the fact that you end up working some very long hours. When it's your business, especially at the start, you are very excited and end up wanting to do everything in relation to improving the nursery, and you don't really want to stop. When you have momentum, you don't want to lose it, and you can easily end up working 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, pushing to ensure the nursery is how you want, which can lead to burnout. When I first started the nursery, I used to work in the actual nursery from 6 a.m. until 6:30 p.m. and would still do work after I finished to do things like trying to promote the nursery or creating and managing the website. This was easier when I was single as I didn't have children, so I was able to just fully focus on getting the nursery started. Though the long hours did continue until after I had children, until I realised the importance of making sure that I make time for my family and prioritising them over work. Though this can be really difficult to do, especially when you are really passionate about the nursery, it can be easy to forget to take time for your family. It's so easy when working for yourself to overdo it and work too much. Depending on the hours you open, the nursery will be open for a long time in your house. As if you want to attract the maximum amount of parents, you will likely have to open from at least 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is so that you can allow parents to drop off and collect around their work. Though as it's your business, you can open any hours you want, but these are really the minimum hours you will likely expect to work if you want to operate as a standard day nursery. This works out at around 10 hours per day, though we now operate from 7:30 to 6:30, and as I said, used to do 6 a.m. until 6:30 p.m, which was 12.5 hours a day. Now, as you'll be a childcare on domestic premises setting and not a lone childminder, you do have other staff, so you don't have to be there all the time. But even though you don't have to be there physically, you end up having to be on call during these times, ready to be there potentially if something goes wrong. It's funny, even as I was preparing for this video, I had to stop in order to cover my nursery to ensure that we were still in ratio, as a few people were off sick, and it's not even in my home anymore. This doesn't happen very often anymore, but this used to make me feel extremely anxious whenever I wasn't at the nursery, as I felt that any second I could and would be called back to the nursery in order to sort something out. So even if you aren't physically working all these hours, it can feel like you can't really relax when you aren't there, which just adds to the stress. As the owner, you end up doing lots of stuff outside of the working day too. Outside of working with the children, you'll be doing lots of other tasks, like going shopping for the nursery, promoting the nursery by, for example, handing out flyers, doing paperwork, responding and answering inquiries. You may even need to answer phone calls or respond to texts from parents or potential parents outside of the working day too. This is because it's good to reply to potential parents quick in order to increase the likelihood of them enrolling, though it isn't essential to reply after your working hours. It's a good idea to get a separate work phone to your personal phone as well, so that you can take a break from being contacted. I've made the mistake a few times of giving some parents my personal number, and even though I told them not to message me unless it's important, they will still message me personally outside of the work hours for very minor things that they could have either messaged the work or have waited until the nursery was open. But it's so important to get some time away from the nursery, and so important to organise your time so that you do actually get breaks. Otherwise you will end up working very long hours and it can be very overwhelming and draining. Another negative of running a nursery from your home, I know a lot of you may be struggling with this already, is that it's difficult to constantly self-motivate yourself. This is one of the main reasons it takes people much longer for them to actually start and open their nursery. When you're running your own nursery, you are your own boss and there's no one to tell you what to do. Despite there being thousands of things, you can be overwhelmed not knowing where to start or what tasks to complete at a certain time. When you work for someone else, they create the structure and they create the routine and essentially lay out tasks for you to complete by a set deadline. When you work for yourself, there is no real deadline, you create it yourself. There are also no set tasks, you have to set these too. You have to come up with what you have to do and what you want to do. Not everyone is capable of doing this and it can lead to apathy. Where there is no or little accountability, it can be very hard to motivate yourself to get things done and get things done quickly. Not everyone has the same energy and passion to continuously get up and keep going, especially on days which are harder and where things aren't going as well. You have to be really self-motivated to run your own nursery or just run your own business. If you do struggle with self-motivation, you need to get support wherever you can. Speak to people and let them know what you're doing. Get in contact with others who may be doing the same thing. I do try to support those enrolled on the course to help them to stay motivated. There's also a Facebook group which I've created, which with a community supporting you, it should help to keep you motivated. So if you haven't joined already, then you can find a link for the Facebook group in the description. I also personally try to keep in contact with those enrolled on the course to check in and support them. But it can be difficult if you're doing this on your own, especially if you're not the most organised person or you aren't sure what you should be doing. It can be very difficult. There will be days where you're not motivated, but you still have to get the job done. You still have to get your team going. You still have to show positive energy to the children, and you still have to be friendly with parents. When you're your own boss, there's no let off, as there's so many people relying on you and this can be difficult. There will be periods when you're running your own nursery where you just get burnt out. This can happen in all fields. You get days where you just can't be bothered, days where you just don't feel like working, which isn't to say you don't love your job and you don't love what you're doing, or that you don't feel blessed to be in a position to work for yourself, but there'll be periods when you just don't want to do anything. Periods where you prefer to meander through the day and just complete tasks that someone else has set for you. But when you run your own nursery, you can't, as it has a greater impact on you and your nursery. It becomes harder to do less as you know there are people relying on you to get tasks done. You have children, staff, parents who all rely on you, and it can be difficult when you are the one who has to pick yourself up. There is no one above you to give you that push. You don't have a boss that will be there to help motivate you. It's a big sacrifice and a lot of the time it goes underappreciated, which can lead to further demotivation, which can create a vicious cycle leading to loneliness and potentially depression, which does lead on to the next negative, which is the isolation. Though if you develop really good relationships with parents and staff, they can help you whenever you do feel like this. It will be important to have a good circle around you too to help boost you in these moments. So your family will be key, and I hope the Facebook group and myself can support you too. As I mentioned, another negative of running a nursery from your home is that it can feel isolating. Yes, you are working with other staff, unlike being a nanny or a lone childminder, but even though you do have staff and can develop friendships with parents, it can be difficult to develop real friendships as the relationships that you build are blurred. Any friendships you build with parents can be complicated as you have to be professional and your main concern should always be for the child. Having friendships with parents can be confusing for the child and may make it harder for you to effectively safeguard the children. For example, you may be reluctant to address a safeguarding concern, or to address SEN needs, as the conversation with the parent may be more difficult if you are friends. Naturally, we would all intend to put the child first, and it's easy to say that we all will, but we are all human, and you may be tempted to overlook things if you have a real close relationship with a parent. Even in more minor situations like the child being sick, you may find it harder to send them home. Also, not in relation to a child in terms of payment, they may start to pay late or take advantage of the friendship. It can be awkward to repeatedly ask payment from a parent you regard as a friend. Because of this business relationship and your need to make a living, this can make it difficult to make any real relationships at work. Though I have made some good friends from parents, and it has actually made some of the conversations that I've had to have with the parents easier, as I know I can tell them anything. So it really depends on the individuals. But even with this, the relationships developed better once their child had left the nursery, as most of our conversations were focused on the child before this. Also, a lot of friendships that we develop in our lifetime are through our workplace, as we spend most of the time there. Being a childcare on domestic premises provider, you do work with people and you can build relationships with staff. Though as you are the owner, it can be more difficult to. Again, this is because of the importance to remain professional. It may be more difficult to reprimand staff if you have been too friendly with them. There's a clear power dynamic there, which makes it difficult to create a friendship where you see each other as level outside of work. It's not impossible, but it can be more difficult. They will naturally see you as their boss, so it may make it more difficult to see you as a friend rather than an authority figure, which makes it difficult to form real bonds. I know one manager who's running a childcare on non-domestic premises who got very upset as she felt she had a really good relationship with her staff, but they arranged a staff meal and didn't invite her, which, although was upsetting, can be expected as they may see you as more of an authority figure and may find it harder to let their hair down in your presence. If this does happen to you and you do start to feel isolated, it's so important to join with other people in your community. Our council runs lots of training for managers, which is a good opportunity to mix with others in similar situations. As mentioned in the previous video, with regards to the positive running your own nursery from home, it's easier for you to balance your work life and your personal life. So do make sure you take opportunities to do things outside of work. Start a new class or join different groups in your area. It will really help your mental health and help you to feel less isolated. As I also said in the last video, you don't need to stay indoors all the time, which can add to the feeling of isolation. We always used to take the kids on various trips, taking them out on nature walks and other things. Spending time outside can really help combat feelings of isolation. Another negative of running a nursery from your home is that it's not easy. Many people think childcare, especially when it's at the home, is just playing with children, though there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of extra work to do, training that is needed. It's a very tough job and a very undervalued field. You may end up working with some very challenging behaviour, which can be very stressful. It feels like, especially after the pandemic, children seem to have understandably come back with a lot more complex and unique behaviours and needs. I felt this at my nursery. I feel like there's been a lot more communication and social delays since returning back to full capacity, which has been challenging. And managing this, whilst also supporting children, is a huge responsibility and can be very difficult. But even without the pandemic, all children have such huge emotions no matter the age range, and trying to ride this emotional roller coaster of these little ones that can change from day to day or even second to second can be very draining. It's hard enough being a parent and dealing with your own children's range of emotions, so going from that to large groups of children can be a new experience. Children generally trust you almost as much as they trust their parents, so will trust you with their real emotions and will feel comfortable to show you exactly how they are feeling, good and bad. When you have a group of children together, you will naturally get conflicts and disagreements too, and you have to help them to manage the conflicts, which brings its own stress. Also, even though there's been an emphasis from Ofsted to reduce paperwork in the early years so that staff can spend more time with children, this doesn't really affect managers and owners, as the amount of paperwork you will need to do will largely be the same. There is still a lot to do outside of caring for the children. There's still group tracking that needs to be done, self-improvement documents, and things like observations on SEN children and the paperwork needed for them haven't really changed. So there is still a lot of work to be done, which can be difficult to fit in a typical working day. Although the work isn't easy, it is very rewarding. This is primarily in terms of making a difference in children's lives, which is one of the best parts of the job. If you haven't worked in childcare before, I would strongly suggest getting some experience in the field, even if you just volunteer in your local nursery, I never did this, but I wish I did. It will give you vital knowledge which can help you to build your nursery, as well as give you an insight into the challenges involved. I also feel personally that it is important that the owner has at one point done every single role within their business so that they can really know the challenges that their staff have. But moving on to the next negative, which is that you have to handle a lot of uncomfortable situations. Ultimately, the buck stops with you. You are in charge. This means that if anything goes wrong and it is not resolved, it will end up at your door and you will have to deal with it, which can be difficult, especially if you're particularly fearful of conflicts. Some examples of some of the uncomfortable situations you have to handle as a nursery owner are: 1. If parents aren't paying, you have to handle that. It can be frustrating having to ask parents to be paid for the service that you offer, especially if they are avoiding paying. You don't want to be rude and want to help out and want to believe that, for example, they might have tried to pay but it hasn't gone through. But most of the time it's not true and you have to be the one to put your foot down, which can be nerve-wracking and challenging. 2 things that a childminder wanted me to add regarding uncomfortable situations, which they wanted me to include in this video, is that 1, you will have to deal with challenging behaviour, which I mentioned previously. This becomes tougher if parents and nurseries aren't working together to manage behaviour, especially if there are different rules at home to your nursery. Speaking to parents about their children's behaviour can be difficult. The other uncomfortable situation that the childminder wanted me to add is that parents may try not to follow your policies and procedures which are in your handbook, and then get mad when you show them the rules. This happens a lot with the sickness policies. Parents may try to bring their child in when they're visibly sick. If you already work in a nursery, you may be used to these situations, but if you don't, you may find it difficult to have these conversations with parents, especially if they are adamant that their child is well enough to be at a nursery. But you need to make sure you address this, as you don't want sickness to spread to other children at your nursery, and you don't want it to spread to your children too. When there is a disagreement with parents, it can lead to them leaving the nursery and leaving disgruntled, seeking revenge, and giving a bad review or making a malicious complaint to Ofsted. These are some of the things that this childminder has had to deal with regularly, and potentially it could be something that you have to deal with too. One of the best things about opening a nursery is that you get to create jobs. You get to start someone's career or provide opportunities for them to continue their career, which is an amazing feeling. Though managing staff can be difficult. It can be difficult and uncomfortable to pull staff up if they are not working up to the standard that you expect, and maybe even more difficult to let staff go if things aren't working out. Ultimately, this is all your responsibility and there's no one you can pass this on to when it comes to you. It's something you have to deal with. Another thing that can happen, and actually has happened to me a few times since starting, is that you end up being in the middle of parents' disputes and arguments. I've had one parent drop off in the morning and say that the other parent can't pick up due to an argument, or in one case because of domestic violence. Thankfully, a situation has never transpired where the other parent has actually tried to come and pick up, but I do know one childcare provider where they have. This can be very awkward and uncomfortable for the nursery, as without a court order, there's not much you can do to stop a parent from picking up, but they may expect you to. You may have to have uncomfortable conversations with family too. As I said, they will be affected by the nursery too, but there may be situations where you need to address some of their behaviours. Are they disrupting the children? Are they friendly and approachable to parents? Are they ensuring that nothing dangerous is left out in potential shared areas like the kitchens and toilets? Or even, are they making sure that these areas are left clean? These are conversations you may need to have with your household members, which, if they are already frustrated with your nursery being there, with these additional rules, can lead to further frustration. Though they will need to be mindful of the fact that anything they do can jeopardise your registration with regulators like Ofsted and the Care Inspectorate, and also affect your relationship with parents and staff. The other negatives that people have said is that, unfortunately, your family will get sick. No matter how much you clean, disinfect and tidy your home, you and your family will get sick. It's hard to stay on top of the cleaning, ensuring illnesses don't pass on to your family. During the first year of you having a nursery will be one of the worst in terms of sickness, as you and your family adapt to the nursery being in your home. Though it does get better, and being around all these children has meant that my immune system is actually really good now and I hardly get sick. The nursery will also affect other things as well. The lingering smell of nappies is not the thing you want to be smelling when you're relaxing in the evening, and you will need to work hard to combat this smell and other smells that the nursery brings. One thing you will find difficult to prevent is your house will get messy. You will find nursery stuff creeping into your personal home, which can be infuriating for you or your family. Even now, I still find nursery stuff at my house, as I always end up putting things in my pocket while tidying, planning to find the right box for it. but then I always forget and end up bringing it home. So you need to be prepared for times when your house is just going to be a mess because of the nursery. Also, when the nursery is in your home, it feels like you're always just cleaning. If you want to run a nursery in your home, you kind of have to expect it. Your nursery rooms will get drawing on it, the toilet walls will end up having handprints on it, whether that's from food or paint on the children's hands. The one tip is to get washable paint. This is what we have and it's made cleaning a lot easier. But your nursery will still get messy and it can be time consuming and expensive to keep on top of this. Though you should have the cost of this included in your budget. Another negative of running a nursery in your home is that you create real bonds with children. Some you might have had from as young as 6 months old and you've seen them develop, grow, and then they just leave. It can be quite sad, especially as generally they forget about you and forget about you quite quickly when they do go to school. I still remember the first 2 children that enrolled on the first day and wonder how they're getting on. But apart from stalking their parents on Facebook, you lose that relationship with that child. The final negative I want to mention is that running a nursery requires a lot of planning. Just to take children out for a trip, you will need to bring registers, have a risk assessment, have emergency contacts, notify parents in advance, have a first aid kit, plus more. So you need to be really organised in order to properly safeguard children. Even just starting up and preparing to open your own nursery requires a lot of planning and organisation, and it can be difficult to manage. I have done a course to help support and make it easier to open a nursery in your home, but apart from the course, there isn't much information available online to support people, which is unfortunate and can be challenging. But that's all the negatives I can think of. I know I've said a lot of negatives in this video, and I may have put some of you off starting a nursery in your home, but those who have stayed until this point or have worked in childcare already, I know you'll be ready for this, and know that although it will be hard, it is also so rewarding. If there is anything you feel I've missed out on, or anything that you relate to, something that you find difficult about running a nursery, or even just working in one, do let me know below in the comments. It's your chance to have a little rant, because although we love the job, it can be hard and it's good to get things off your chest. And I enjoy knowing that other people are going through similar things I went through. I enjoy discussing this with other childcare owners that I've helped, and it's been nice to know that we have shared negatives. Though if after hearing all the negatives that I can think of and you're still crazy enough to want to start your own nursery, then get started today. Don't wait. There's no reason to delay preparing your nursery. Even if you just start by beginning your planning and starting your business plan. You can get support to get started and get finished by enrolling on the course I mentioned at the beginning of the video. The simply named Learn How to Open a Nursery in Your Home course. It covers everything you need to know in order to start your nursery from home. Click the link in the description to find out more. In the description you can also find a discount code which you can use by adding to cart and entering it at checkout. On the course you will get a step-by-step guide teaching you how to open a nursery from your home, tools to help you research demand in your area, hire and pay staff, plus lots more, access to documents and paperwork which you can simply edit for your business plan guidance with templates and examples, plus Ofsted registration guidance to ensure that you register correctly, as well as links to how to register for the other regulatory bodies. I have over 150 people enrolled on the courses, all teaching them how to open their own nursery. You can see what some of them have said on the screen now. So join my other happy students now and enroll on the course by clicking the link in the description. So take the next step and get started today on your dream of opening your own nursery in your home, and click the link in the description. I hope this video has been helpful and I look forward to supporting you further on the course. On the screen now is another video which will further support you to open your own nursery. But before you go, make sure you hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more videos teaching you how to open a nursery. I wish you all the best on your journey and dream, and I will see you on the next video and look forward to supporting you on the course. God bless.